Game 3 of their first-round series with the Timberwolves, 6:30 tip-off on ESPN. It was a tough night Thursday for Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Deion's son has been the most talked-about prospect leading up to the NFL draft, but all 32 teams passed on him in the first round. Sanders will have to wait for today's second round to hear his name called. The draft resumes today at 4 p.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. You might think we're playing Aloe Black because Maya Jupiter's coming on next hour, and that's her husband. But it's actually become sort of our reparations, one of our reparation theme songs around here, because we need a few trillion of them. We talk about reparations every Friday, second hour of the show. We call it Freedmen Friday. It is meant to be a comprehensive reparations conversation so we can be well informed, be inspired, move the ball down the field, because we do have momentum even in these tough times. And I'm really excited to have one of our great thinkers on with me to talk about this. We'll also look at some of the incredible things he's got going on in his life. But he is a political, cultural, literary, and hip-hop voice who is widely celebrated, as Sherry Bell just referenced. He's actually just released a spoken word poetry album with original music produced by him and Tanisha Hill in the spirit of hip-hop. Well, actually, that was last year, I think, but from his book, Grocery Shopping with My Mother. Why you got to change everything, Dominique? He's really an icon, not just in the cultural and public intellectual space, but in hip-hop world. He appears on TV, radio, and in print, and of course on the internet, discussing all kinds of issues and moving the needle in terms of our perception and how we talk about these things. Is also an author. Kevin Powell, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
I was appreciating you too, and I was thinking about it when I was driving in here this morning. When was the first time I interviewed Kevin Powell? I think it was during when I had my television show, Home Turf, back in the day in San Francisco. That's what I
Wow,
think.
that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
you do so many interviews, you probably don't remember it, but for me, it was a hella big deal. Now my Bay Area is showing, um, but I think it was in the '90s.
Wow, it was. It was.
Yeah,
It
I
was.
think
I
it
spent
was
a
in
lot
the
of time in the
'90s.
Bay Area in the 90s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shout out to the Bay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
shout out to those of us who have been in this hip hop thing for a minute, and since we were youth, and are still
Literally.
standing. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We're still here, and I'm thankful for that. I just celebrated the birthday yesterday, so I'm grateful for every year I get. I can't tell you.
Okay. Okay. Happy
Yes, ma'am.
birthday. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Happy
Thank you so
solar
much.
return. So, look, you got a lot going on as always. And somebody, I think it was Sherry Bell said Kevin Powell knows everything about hip hop, which
Oh no, no, not everything. I
not
know a
everything.
few things here and there. No, man.
But
I mean, I'm
go ahead.
no, I was saying, I'm excited about your show talking about reparations. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
I
well,
apologize.
so that was kind of my segue there. No, this is kitchen table conversation. Cut away. Um, but where I was going with it is that I have an ongoing conversation with myself about whether hip hop and pop culture influences the politics more or whether the politics influence the hip hop and pop culture more. Who is the leader and who is the follower in that conversation? And specifically in this Freedmen Friday context, I'm looking at the issue of reparations. Who is leading and who is following in the normalization, in the acceptance, in the understanding of what reparations even is?
Mm. Well, that's a great question, and let me answer it this way. 100 years ago, as you well know, we had something called the Garvey movement in this country, which still remains the largest mass movement of Black folks in American history, even bigger than the Civil Rights Movement. And that had a deep impact on many things, not just the Garvey movement, but the anti-lynching movement. And of course, the artistic cultural part of it, pop culture part of it, was jazz and the Harlem Renaissance. And you can see it in the work of Zora Hurston, Langston Hughes, of Claude McKay, many of those great artist creators of that time. And then obviously in the 1960s with the Black Arts Movement and everything that was happening, with the Civil Rights Movement, it had a big impact on a lot of our cultural output. What has happened, I believe, in reverse is this culture that we created called hip hop, definitely born in the Bronx, but there was parallel energies happening here in California as well. And I always say to people in New York who are very biased, if you don't think so, go back and watch Soul Train dancers in the 1970s in California, popping and locking. If you don't think it was happening, understand Chicano culture, understand lowrider culture. That's all hip hop as well in California back in the day,
Yeah,
happening. And I
understand the
think
Watts
that
prophets, understand. Yeah, good point.
exactly, Watts Prophets, all of it. I just saw Charles Burnett speak in New York the other day, and he was part of this whole L.A. rebellion of filmmakers. Him and Julie Dashwood going to UCLA, and so there was always energy happening here in California. And I think that unfortunately, what's happened with hip hop, as you know, this culture that was created out of the socioeconomic conditions of that era, created by poor people, African Americans, Latinx folks, West Indian folks in New York City, African American and Chicano folks, Latinx folks on the West Coast. It was a cultural political movement, and I believe that the hip hop got split up into two things. Here's hip hop, the industry, and here's hip hop, the culture. The culture was about life and possibilities, even though it had its own problems, one of them being the sexism and ignoring the contributions of women like Angie Stone, who, rest in peace, who just passed, who was a part of the first female group ever signed to a rap label, Sugar Hill Records. But we understand that the culture was supposed to be about empowering Black people. The industry, what you're talking about, has become the dominant thing, where it has oftentimes redirected and misguided us. And I think that has been intentional, just like the minstrel shows were intentional when they were created in the 1830s and 1840s. As we talk about reparations, part of the repairing is not just us getting checks, not us just getting California to apologize, in New York State, where I'm from, to apologize, but also what has been the systemic damages over these 400 plus years to Black people in this country. And part of it has been what has been done to us in damaging ways in terms of the images that we've had to digest. And so when I think about the industry of hip hop, what it's become, it's as destructive as the things that were coming out of those minstrel shows for so many of us. And I think when we talk about it influencing policies, it influences policy in the sense that it confuses us, and a lot of us don't understand the importance of voting, understand the importance of reparations, understand what this commission is doing in California, to understand why the commission is important in New York State on reparations. Because we are being told that stuff is not important. What's important is what's happening with Shannon Sharpe on social media, what's happening with this celebrity on social media, who's gossiping with what, about what, who's dating who, et cetera, as certain forces continue to undermine our communities in countless ways, as you well know, from everything from gentrification to what's going to happen to the people in Altadena post-fires.
Yeah, okay, there's a lot of things you said there that we can unpack, and I'm going to try to stay focused on reparations, because, let's do that, Dominique. Let's stay focused on reparations. So I think you're right. There's the industry, which can be confusing. And even though I feel like messaging still breaks through. Yes. And, because there's an aspect to our culture that's uncontrollable.
That's right.
Thank God.
That's right.
And then as you say, there's the culture itself and the art, right? And so part of what I'm talking about are songs, lyrics. We believe it or not, reparations has popped up over the years here and there in the lyrics of hip hop. Do you think that plays a role in people even knowing about it, caring about it, normalizing it, or do you think it's drowned out by what you're calling the industry?
I think every now and then we have these incredible breakthroughs. I think if people think that Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us song is strictly a diss record about Drake, they've missed the point. The most important part of Not Like Us is when Kendrick says, "Let me put you up on game," he's actually talking about slavery. He's actually talking about colonization. He's actually talking about the damages that have been done historically and systemically to Black people, which is what the reparations movement is about in California, in New York State, around this country, in the Caribbean, in England, in various places that I've been and encountered folks doing the reparations work. And so you definitely have these breakthroughs. You definitely have Black culture representing in certain kind of ways that, if people are going to watch Kendrick at the Super Bowl and can't understand that he made a conscious decision not to be, quote unquote, entertaining, but let me use this platform with 133 billion people, pardon me, and actually educated by Black culture. That is what I'm talking about. There are breakthroughs like that, and I think we certainly have seen it historically from back in the day to the present. Queen Latifah, Public Enemy. I mean, there's so many different examples of it. Arrested Development. We can point to different things. Lauryn Hill, Kendrick Lamar. But I think it's become much more difficult because, unfortunately, just like the minstrel show was about portraying Black people as over-sexualized, dangerous, immoral, violent, that is what hip-hop, the industry, has done to our beloved hip-hop culture. Let's push forth the over-sexualization. Let's push forth the anti-intellectualism. Let's push forth the violence, all of that kind of stuff. And Kendrick becomes like this anomaly when we know he actually is not an anomaly, because our whole history of griots, of storytellers, has been people who have spoken truth to power. But it becomes much more difficult. To me, it was a victory. I don't care what anyone else said. To me, for him to get on that stage and to say what he said at the Super Bowl, and the images that I saw of Blackness all over the place, that was a victory for reparations as far as I'm concerned. This is how you repair the damage. What does reparations mean? How do you repair the damages that has happened to any group of people?
Yeah, I think it was a victory, too, just because the imagery and what it draws people into, in terms of a consciousness, what you're listening to, all of that stuff. Otherwise, conservatives wouldn't have been big mad when they figured it out a day or two later. Right. when it finally hit them what just happened. What did we just underwrite here?
That's right.
But I think there's also something about, not just a literal song or a literal, endorsement of this idea of reparations or reparations bill, but a consciousness of boldness, of being able to say anything and not being afraid. That continues even in the most industrial, even in the most commercial hip hop. Well, maybe not the most. Even in some of the more commercial hip hop, you still have this feeling like I might say or do anything. I don't know. Does that contribute? And what will it take because I remember I used to talk with Dick Gregory about this. I say that all the time because we talked about it in the 90s. We were talking about reparations. He said it will take 50 years and that normalization is the key. So what role does hip-hop and pop culture play in normalizing this conversation?
Well, that's a great question. I think it has to be multifaceted. I think it's definitely all of our art forms: hip hop, music, dance, visual arts in different forms, all of it. But I also think it's going to take us going back to what we did when we came out of physical slavery, where we had to educate ourselves or re-educate ourselves and build our own institutions and create our own alternative spaces. Because I think, listen, I went to college in the 1980s as a young person during the Reagan-Bush years, and I literally have seen this movement, this rightward movement, as you have, Dominique, for the last 40 years. They've been organized, it's been sustained, it's been purposeful. And as people are being shocked about what Trump is doing in 2025, I'm like, this has been happening all along. He's simply signing executive orders at a fast pace, but it's all been in place because all of it was it was all created, it was all designed to counter the civil rights / black power / black liberation movement of the 1950s, 1960s, and early 1970s. That was a conscious effort to do that. And unfortunately, when you add that reality of purposely trying to counter it, along with the prison industrial complex, along with crack, cocaine, and the AIDS pandemic, and other things have done to us, and the massive underclass that I came out of in my hometown of Jersey City, New Jersey, and many of us, being stuck in these kind of class situations and left to ourselves in these cities, which is what produced hip hop in the first place. There's literally a need to create everything all over again for some of us, and I think that's where we are. And unfortunately, as much as I use social media, I'm on social media every day, because it's a tool. That's where the people are. I also realize that social media also has been a way to further misinform and misdirect people and to confuse people, and quite frankly, to keep a lot of us very, very unaware, and in some cases completely ignorant. So there's a need to build all this up. This is why your radio show is important. This is why this station is important. This is why the work that you've been doing your entire life is important, because we have to educate in a whole new way and understand how I was educated back in the 80s and 90s as a younger person coming up. It's very different now, which is why I now am making films, because I realize, Kev, you got 16 books. That's great. I love books. I think books are important. I always encourage you to read. But some people ain't going to read no book. They're going to listen to a podcast. They're going to listen to your radio show, Dominique DiPrima. They're going to watch something like a film that we've done on Black Manhood, as opposed to reading something. And that's just where we are. We have to meet the people where they are. So I think it's a combination of things that have to happen. And along the way, when I was coming up, the word reparations got planted in my head. Reparations. Think about reparations. Think about reparations. What does that mean to repair? Let me just say this one thing really quickly. It hits me personally. My mother and her entire family, because I only know my mother's side, I don't know my father's family, is from South Carolina, the low country of South Carolina by Savannah. My great-grandfather, Benjamin Powell, had over 400 acres of land in the early 1900s in the low country of South Carolina. He was also a cook for the community. He cooked for black folks and white folks in that community. There were some racist white folks in the community who wanted his land, kept pressuring him to sell what he called the Powell property. One day, his wife got a knock on the door and said he choked on his food, and they found him in some water. They had murdered him, essentially lynched him, and he proceeded to take most of the 400 acres of land. So we talk about reparations. It's not just about slavery. It's also what happened after slavery in terms of the kind of domestic terrorism that black people were the victims of all over this country, including my great-grandfather. What did that do to my family? It created generations of poverty. Yeah. My grandfather, my mother, her siblings, right up to me.
It's terrible.
And when my mother was 8 years old, she started picking cotton in that same community in South Carolina. They told her and the people in the community to meet them at the Powell property. They had never even bothered to change the name of the property from the Powell property, even though they had killed my grandfather, who was the Powell. I mean, just think about that for a second. Yeah. This is what we mean by reparations.
Absolutely. I want to go a little deeper into that when we come forward. We might be related because my family's from over there too. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality, because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial, because yes, it is. Don't stay in bargaining, where you're praying for a miracle, and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
After producing an award-winning climate justice campaign in 2024, KBLA Talk 1580 has gone all in on its 2025 Climate Justice plus Black Health Initiative. April is Minority Health Month, and Urban Family Focus, in partnership with Providence Health Systems, presents The Heart of the Matter. Providence doctors and health equity officers will participate in informative and life-changing conversations on hypertension, health equity, behavioral health, and community engagement. Don't miss these empowering conversations on Urban Family Focus every Saturday in April at 7 and Sunday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Sponsored by Providence, Southern California's largest and most comprehensive health care network. We've got a lot to talk about on KBLA Talk 1580. Download the KBLA 1580 app or log in to KBLA1580.com. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. On KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Okay, so you guys know Kevin Powell. He's a Grammy-nominated poet. I forgot that part. He's got 16 books, wrote a biography on Tupac Shakur. But, and this is Freedmen Friday, of course, but it's another thing is happening on Friday. If you're in LA, he's got a screening of his new film. It's tonight at 6 p.m. at the James Bridges Theater at UCLA, which is 235 Charles E. Young Drive. You know that if you're from LA. 90095. You just mentioned that you're pivoting. Maybe not pivoting, expanding, I think would be a better description, because I doubt you're stepping away from poetry or being an author or being a public intellectual. But this is a movie about manhood. It's a documentary called When We Free the World. And I'm thinking about it in the context of this conversation that, you know, even the story about your grandfather being killed and all of the legacies and badges of slavery, which is what our California Task Force talks about. It's one of the things I think is most important about the work of the California Task Force. They make it plain that it's not just about slavery. It's about Jim Crow and all of the ways in which we've been disenfranchised and ripped off. And as a result, I mean, I haven't seen your documentary yet. I'm looking forward to it. But When We Free the World is what it's called. 70 male voices across 5 generations asking, what is a man? How can you even be, you know, the fullness of manhood in the context of this constant diminishment and robbery that comes out of our enslavement and the subsequent harms?
That's such an excellent question, and I need to tell you, so the film When We Free the World is divided into 9 chapters, and the first chapter is actually called History. And what do we talk about in the first chapter? The enslavement of our ancestors, kidnapped African people, and this collision of racism, or what some call white supremacy, and patriarchy, or what some call sexism, and how that helped to shape, you know, how we came to these definitions of manhood, of masculinity, because we can't just talk about the state of black males in 2025 in America or anywhere in the world without talking about, well, what did slavery do to us? What did colonization do to us? What did this notion that women and girls are inferior, quote unquote, to men and boys, when you and I both know, Dominique DiPrima, that is absolutely not true. We are all equals. But if you've been taught that over and over again, and you've never questioned where you got your definitions of manhood from, you end up basically repeating what's been given to you over and over again. And that's what the film is about. It's not a condemnation of black males. It's a love letter, quite frankly, to black males. But it's saying, hey, brothers, you know, we've got to think about where we are, and we've got some serious work to do around our spirituality, our mental health, our knowledge or lack of knowledge of history, you know, and actually showing up in our communities on a regular basis and saying the same stuff that I heard in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s is not going to cut it. One thing I always say to black males wherever I go in this country is, like, if we got a whole body of work from people like Sonia Sanchez, Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, the list is endless, of black Toni Morris and so many sisters who have created these spaces of conversations. we've got to create a comparable body of work as Black males that examine who we are and our relationships to each other and also to sisters and all identities, all gender identities in our community. How do we move forward? And what does healing look like for us? What does healing look like for us? That's what the film is about. So the first chapter, number 1, is called History. When we get to the last chapter, number 9, is called Hope. And, that's what it's about. And it's really demanding that we talk. So it's not just a film. It's a study guide curriculum. It's a podcast series that's coming. It's a website full of information and resources. All of this is going to be released this year, and also a soundtrack, all Black male voices on the soundtrack. But it's really kind of probing and questioning in a way that I think is necessary for us, especially as we talk about the 100th birthday of Malcolm X in a month and the 30th anniversary of the Million Man March. We need to really assess where we are, particularly with all this insanity happening around us. Who are we? What are we doing? And what are we going to do in our communities? And it can't just be reacting, and going off on each other and going off on sisters. That is not a plan of action for anyone.
Well, with all these things coming, all these different aspects to this project, we have a chance to be some of the earlier viewers of the film. If you're in LA, you could see it tonight at UCLA. So that is an amazing thing. I assume you'll be there.
I'll be there. I'm here in LA, and it's free. It's free. So please, I just want to encourage you, RSVP at whenwefreetheworld.com, RSVP at whenwefreetheworld.com, so you can get in. And when you RSVP, you'll get all the details back to you. But it's definitely tonight. I'm excited to see folks. We're taking it around the country. So we're actually on a film tour right now. We've been eager to get to LA, but out of respect for what y'all went through in Altadena, elsewhere, we posted it back from January to this month. So we're just happy to finally be here with y'all.
That's probably good, because we were we've been pretty distracted, had our hands full. And to your point, here we are in the middle of this very crazy federal administration, and there's resurgence of fascism, not just in this country, but around the world. I think you're right. It's been a long time in the making. The other backlash, of course, is to 2020. But in one of the reasons why I'm so determined to talk about reparations every Friday is this is one area where people just are not stopping. It was yesterday that Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson opened the application process for Chicago's Reparations Task Force. They're going to study the systemic harm against Black Chicagoans and look at repair. LA just turned in its reparations report. It's quite eye-opening. I did not know there was some, I can't even remember, something like 12 chapters of the KKK in this LA City alone. So what do you make of that? I mean, Chicago moving forward, Detroit moving forward with their seating their reparations task force right now in the middle of this moment.
I think it's tremendously important. The reality is we don't get to this Trump era without understanding that this entire country was rooted in the genocide of indigenous people, and that it was rooted in the enslavement, kidnapping and enslavement of African people who, as you know, literally built this country economically in every way possible. I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, where my home state. Rutgers was created, so-called, in 1766. Rutgers admitted a few years ago that its institution, along with Georgetown and many of the other schools on the East Coast, were built by enslaved African people.
Ooh, Kevin Powell, hold that thought. My fault. I pushed us right up against news, traffic, and sports, but I can't wait to hear the rest of your unpacking of that question on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The Alabama NAACP opposes President Trump's selection as commencement speaker at the University of Alabama, citing his record on race and civil rights. The speech is scheduled for May 1st at Coleman Coliseum. Pope Francis passed away Monday after a stroke, and tens of thousands have visited St. Peter's Basilica to pay respects. His body will lie in state until this evening, following his funeral on Saturday. High mortgage rates and economic concerns are slowing the housing market. March sales of previously owned homes fell nearly 6% to just over 4 million, the slowest March since 2009. Sales went down nationwide, except in the West, due to strong job growth. And Rock the Bells returns to New Jersey at the Prudential Center on June 28th. The lineup features Busta Rhymes, Redman, Too Short, and more. Co-founder LL Cool J says it's about hip-hop's elevation, preservation, and innovation. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Welcome to the newly renovated Toyota of Carson. We want to say yes to every offer.
During our tax time sales event, get 0 down payment options, plus rates as low as 1.99%. Then receive an additional $1,000 trade-in bonus.
Toyota of Carson.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers treated a sellout crowd at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood to a dominant performance last night in the NBA playoffs. They put a beat down on the Denver Nuggets with a 117-83 win to take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7 first-round series. Another solid game for Kawhi Leonard, 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. James Harden and Norman Powell dropped 20 points each. Game 4 is Saturday at 3 p.m. at the Intuit Dome. The Lakers are in Minneapolis tonight for Game 3 of their first-round series with the Timberwolves, 6:30 tip-off on ESPN. It was a tough night Thursday for Colorado quarterback Shakur Sanders. Deion's son has been the most talked-about prospect leading up to the NFL draft, but all 32 teams passed on him in the first round. Sanders will have to wait for today's second round to hear his name called. The draft resumes today at 4 p.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I feel so alone. I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed.
I don't like it inside.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
Hi, I'm Joe Montaigne. Let's talk about veteran homelessness, because it's not just a housing issue, it's a human issue. Right now, we need LA property owners to open their doors and give veterans a safe place to call home. With guaranteed rent and dedicated support, you can be part of the solution. Learn how you can help. Email houseourvets@lacity.org.
When the flames subside, who ensures that the stories endure? At KBLA Talk 1580, we're committed to preserving the voices that shape our community. We know people have short memories, and as long as this Black Talk radio station is on the air, we will not let Altadena be forgotten. We are honored to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will officially archive our recent town hall, alongside every episode of Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr. This is the show of record, the definitive source for tracking Altadena's roots, resilience, recovery, and reunion. These stories will now live on for students, scholars, researchers, and journalists seeking truth and legacy in the months and years to come. Because history isn't just made, it's honored, it's recorded, and it's passed forward. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. At Exquisite Family Mortuary, we know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. Exquisite Family Mortuary is located nearby in Inglewood, California. Exquisite Family Mortuary, where your loved one becomes our loved one. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
And our guest for this Freedmen Friday is Kevin Powell, one of the most celebrated political, cultural voices, literary hip-hop voices in America. But and he was responding to my question about the progress on reparations. I mentioned Detroit now moving forward with their reparations commission, and Chicago as well. But look, if you're in LA tonight, you can see his directorial debut. The documentary When We Free the World is a movie about manhood. And so that is tonight, 6 p.m., James Bridges Theater at UCLA. It's free, so there you go. And you're meant to RSVP whenwefreetheworld.com, whenwefreetheworld.com. I have a feeling this is not going to be your last film, but we have the opportunity to see your very first one. And I noticed you interviewed my brother, Raz. He's in the film.
I do.
Mayor
Yeah.
Baraka, yeah.
Raz,
Yeah.
Raz, we have a section of the film brothers like Raz talking very powerfully about sexism, quite frankly. And he talks about Sister Shawnee, your Sister Shawnee, and it's a very tender moment in the film and a heavy moment. And it's stuff that we have to talk about as men. You know, it's very serious. And so the film is actually for all of us. I want to make that clear. The film wouldn't exist without Black women in any shape or form, including my wife and co-producer, co-writer on the film who'll be there tonight. She's actually a native of California. She's actually born in Pasadena, went to UCLA, grew up in San Diego, and so many other sisters, because this is really about all of us. But it's something that we as men need to do. We need to have these conversations. And, don't laugh at me, Dominique, but when I saw Lemonade several years ago, I was like, man, I want to do something like this for Black males.
You said don't
and,
laugh.
You laugh. It's all right.
It was a laugh of support and affirmation. Look, there's no way that, whether you're gay, straight, or other, that we can have a whole and healed Black community or any community without dealing with the issue of manhood, because it's part of it. It's an important part of it. And for those who not tracking it, my sister Shawnee is the one who was murdered. So that as an offshoot of a domestic violence situation. So
that's right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. But you were going in, and I didn't give you enough time to answer, but you were going in on this moment, how we're continuing to make progress. Folks are focusing on reparations, even though Trump has clearly said that he's not for it. He actually disparaged it, saying it was part of Kamala Harris's secret agenda. And but people are continuing to move forward.
We have to. I mean, this is like a last gasp of white supremacy, of racism. That's what we see happening with this administration in this era. But that doesn't stop us. I mean, what people ask me, Kevin, are you scared? No. What gives you hope? My ancestors. I know what we did coming out of 1865. I know what we did during Reconstruction. I know what we did when Reconstruction was dismantled and torn apart. I look at all the examples out there in history, Ida B. Wells, Marcus Garvey, who we mentioned earlier. There's so many folks. I think about reparations. What does it mean? Think about how they were enslaved people who were brought to California during the California Gold Rush, 1850 to 1860, in a state that didn't actually have legalized slavery in this state, but they were brought here anyway, because people don't realize some of the folks who were doing the gold rush in California were white Southern plantation owners. This is why history is so important. Malcolm X taught us history is a people's memory. Without it, we're demoted to the lower animals. This is Malcolm speaking, not me speaking. So what does reparations mean to me? Repair. We hear words like trauma and trigger all the time now. Well, where did this stuff come from? Why does my family, speaking about my family specifically, have certain things that have just been passed on from generation to generation? Don't talk about it. Don't put your business out there. I'm like, no, I want to go to therapy. I want to unpack this stuff. I want to work on my spiritual belief system, my spiritual practices, so that I can actually heal from the traumas, the legacies of slavery, segregation, lynchings, all the systemic attacks that have happened consistently on Black people and African bodies in this country, and some of it that we've internalized and done to ourselves is what happened to your dear sister Shawnee. This is what we're talking about. And to me, when it's reparations, it's not just about a check. It's definitely not just about, talking about it. We need the commissions in LA and Detroit, Chicago, all of these places, but we also have to ask ourselves, how do we heal? What does healing look like for us? How do we repair the damage that's happened? My wife and I talk about this all the time. What did we come from that we've brought into our relationship? What do we need to do differently here? That's part of reparations to me. How do we make sure we have a healthy Black relationship moving forward that's not a repeat of what my mama and daddy went through, what my grandparents went through over and over again, even as they were surviving and doing the best that they could with what they knew. Given all that we have, man, I better be going to therapy and counseling. I better be unpacking stuff. I better be thinking about all the stuff that I've internalized that's been passed on since slavery forward. One of the things that helped me to forgive my father years ago was realizing, wait a minute, he was taught on that plantation, his ancestry, to be a breeder, a baby maker, and therefore when he came out, he didn't think twice about, let me have 12 or 13 children, which he ended up doing by a whole bunch of women and not being responsible or accountable to any of them, because that's simply what would happen on those plantations. And so when I think about reparations, it's also about having conversations with each other. What has happened to us? What do we need to unpack here? It's kind of what they did in South Africa. What's the truth and reconciliation that we need to do as Black folks in America? That's what reparations means to me, all of it.
That they did that. They didn't get their 40 acres and a mule, though. But I understand what you're saying very deeply.
They did not economically. They did not.
Yeah.
No.
So, and of course, neither did we. But but the point that does, there is a straight line there to your film. What I was not very articulately expressing as a Black woman who happens to be heterosexual and love Black men, if men don't heal and figure out manhood that's healthy and robust and
right.
and reachable and teachable, then where does that leave us? I mean, it can't be, the brothers can't be over there talking. Do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I need you to be whole and well so I can, so I can be whole and well with you.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, we started the conversation talking about hip hop, which I love deeply. Listen, I literally grew up in this culture. It is me. I was a b-boy, a dancer, a graffiti writer. I was a staff member at Vibe magazine. I've been in hip hop in so many different ways. But one of the things I think about is that over the last couple of generations of Black males, we can't just put it on young Black males. I literally can point a straight line. Listen, our film is 5 generations, like you said. It's teenagers and 90-somethings. But when you look at Gen X, our generation, the millennials behind us and Gen Z behind us, it's almost like there's been an encouragement for a lot of us as brothers not to grow up at all. It's like there's been this juvenilization. Like when you see all the trouble that Shannon Sharpe is in right now as a 56-year-old Black man, former football player, Hall of Fame football player, successful media person, however people define success, that's a whole other conversation. But the fact that he's in trouble for this situation with this 19-year-old woman, I'm like, and people are defending him. I'm like, where's the conversation about, wait a minute, a lot of these brothers now are 40 and 50 years old. We're not talking about a 20-year-old Kevin Powell. We're talking about you're in your 40s or 50s. When are we actually going to grow up? When are we going to actually pull our pants up? When are we actually going to be serious about being in committed relationships? If you happen to be heterosexual with a sister or any gender identity, just being in a committed relationship, understanding the importance of family, importance of being in community and showing up on a regular basis. One of the questions I get all the time around the country from brothers, well, what do you want Black men to do? My answer is simple. The same thing I wanted my father to do: show up on a consistent basis. Show up on a consistent basis. Like, show up on a consistent basis. Be open to constructive criticism. Be open to growing, evolving, and actually growing up. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, your brother Rash should not be an anomaly. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be a few brothers who are like, well, this is what we need to do and this is what we are. We need to talk about these challenges. It should be across the board, because what I feel has happened, we've left y'all, quite frankly, Dominique DiPrima, and Black women to do a bulk of the work. As we've done this, as we take this film around the country, a lot of people who have asking us to come are Black women. Can you bring the film? Can you bring the film here? We need it for our boys. We need it for our men. We need it for our... No, brothers, show up. We want brothers to come out tonight, but I guarantee there'll be a lot of sisters there. And this is a challenge to Black males. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your profession is. Stop talking about Martin and Malcolm. They're not coming back. Stop talking about what it used to be back in the day. Stop talking about, brothers are kings and we need to take our rightful place in the community. If you don't show up on a regular basis and if you don't respect Black women as your equals and are able to listen to the voices of Black women and try to be a better man from that, the way I'm trying to do when my wife challenges me, I don't get bent. I'm not like, you know what? I have to listen to her. I have to listen to what she's saying, because as equal partners, she makes me better. She's not taking away my manhood. She's actually enhancing my manhood, but pointing out some things that I need to be aware of that no one else is pointing out. And that's what this film is about. What do we want to do as Black men here in our communities that so desperately need us?
And I'm thinking about your grandfather right now, right?
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, who had his land stolen and his life stolen, and the ultimate robbery of manhood, your life and your land, everything.
Yeah.
So when we talk about reparations, and you see the stories of like Bruce's Beach and now the Ebony Beach Club and this movement towards a restitution and repair, and maybe one day you could get the Powell land back. How do you feel when you see that?
Let me tell you, my mother's only brother, my Uncle Lloyd, in the late 90s, drove me through the area that my great-grandfather's land was. He said he did a sweep of his hand when we were in the car. He owned all of this, and he owned all of this. And I just started crying, because I said to myself, one day, Dominic, I would like to be able to get this land back. You know what I mean? Yes. And when I heard the story about Bruce Beach and other situations like that around the country, I mean, that's what it's about, because we understood when we were coming out of our physical enslavement in this country, we wanted land, we wanted to have an education, we wanted to have our own, we wanted freedom. We wanted the real definition of freedom, you know what I mean? And it's still the case, we want to be in spaces where we can feel safe, and you're right. We never got our 40 acres and a mule, which is why Kendrick Lamar referenced it in that Super Bowl performance, because it was like, hey, this is a shout out to what hasn't happened around reparations, around repairing. And we know even when we had our communities like Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wilmington, North Carolina, white terrorists, domestic terrorists, sought to destroy these communities. But I'm like, in me, what do I feel? I'm never going to let anyone stop me from getting what I deserve and what we deserve as a people and what our ancestors fought so hard for. I don't want someone to look back 50 years from now, 100 years from now, they look at 2025 and they say, well, what did those black people do when all this stuff was happening to them? That's why these reparation commissions are so important. That's why these movements are so important all around the country. What did they do on their watch? What did Dominique DiPrima do? What do y'all, you know what you're doing. You do, ever since I've known you've been doing it. But we need more and more people to step up of all gender identities. Don't just sit around and watch. Just don't wring your fingers. Like, don't let Altadena disappear.
Right.
Do not let Altadena disappear. Make those sure that we keep those homes, that property, that land. Because folks, one of the stories that hit my heart the hardest was when the story of the one brother in Altadena who had the hose in his hand and he died with that hose in his hand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Dominica? Because he understood the legacy of his people to get that land, to get that house, to get that property, what we've been through. And if I got to put this fire out with my hose, if I'm going to die here with this hose, I fought trying to hold on to this property. That's why I don't give up.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Kevin Powell, you're right. I do what I do every day, but still, it's really inspiring to hear you say that, because in this moment, a lot of folks who have been fighting and active and standing for justice their whole lives, a lot are stepping up, but some are shrinking and trying to blend into the background so we don't have to be deported or, detained, put in jail, disrespected. They're coming for the nonprofits. They're coming for black activists, not just immigrants, everybody. So I think your call to courage is super important in this moment for all of us, no matter whether we've been doing it or not.
Ida B. Wells. She was
my hero.
She was courage. Ida B. Wells. I'm going to keep talking about systemic oppression, even as they're trying to destroy me and burn things down all around me, burn me up. Sisters and brothers, folks out there, all gender identities, whoever you're, look to our history. I can't even imagine what she went through. And I think about that all the time. I think about her and Harriet and Sojourner and, all these folks. Like, you have to strike a blow for freedom. As Sonia Sanchez has always said in her poetry, we have to resist. Be smart about it, be wise about it, learn the lessons, understand some things that have happened, be careful who you engage with, in different ways. But listen, I've been doing this for 40 years of my life. I trust my discernment now. This gray hair came around for a reason, right? A little bit of gray hair came around for a reason. But, the film for me is, am I going to stop writing books? Am I going to stop doing poetry? No, but I am going to move in spaces that I think we need to move in. Like, what y'all do, I admire. Radio is powerful. This is our radios are newspapers now. What Ida B. Wells was doing, radios and podcasts are the newspapers. And so we need these spaces because these are spaces to provide that hope, that encouragement. And, there's nothing wrong with being afraid, but we can't let the fear paralyze us from doing anything. That's what I'm saying. And you don't have to do everything, but like in your own ways, I mean, listen, if I share stories of how we're getting a film out there, amidst all this stuff happening, we literally are in California. Next week, we're in Oregon. Then we're going to Ohio. We're going to New Hampshire. And it's brothers and sisters in these places, strategic in these places, black people in these places are like, let's get the film here. Let's get the study guide here. Let's get the message out here. Even as people are trying to erase black history, black culture, we literally have had people say to us, Dominique DiPrima, well, you can't bring the film here because you say black manhood. We're like, okay, we're going to take the word black on because it actually applies to all manhood, because what is coming from the White House is called toxic manhood. That's what it is. It's toxic manhood. That's what it is.
Talking with Kevin Powell. He's an author. You know him well, but the directorial debut is right now. Kevin Powell channeling his inner Oscar Michaud and going, guys, film in a suitcase, going from state to state. And you get a chance to see it tonight at UCLA, absolutely for free. And all you have to do is go to whenwefreetheworld.com. We'll continue our conversation on this Freedmen Friday with Kevin Powell when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Imagine serving our country to protect our rights and freedoms, then coming home without a place to call your own. LA property owners, we need you. You can help get veterans off the street and into safe, stable housing, because this is not just a housing issue, it is a human issue. This is Joe Mantegna. Learn more about how you can help end veteran homelessness. Email houseourvets@lacity.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their programs. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Barbecue season is back. Hey, it's Ellen.
And this is Sarah Beth.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that zesty barbecue sauce. I love that it was a little sweet, a little tangy, and with the mac and cheese,
I feel like I tasted the brown sugar bacon first. It was the absolute best combination. Pro tip, 3 sandwiches are always better than 1.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and our Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
We absolutely don't. And we're talking with Kevin Powell, so you should get your inspiration, a little inspiration for your not blacking down vibes. His documentary, When We Free the World, is having its LA premiere tonight at the James Bridges Theater at UCLA. It's a movie on manhood. It's unlike anything you've seen before. It is his directorial debut. Of course, you know he's a Grammy-nominated poet, author of 16 books, the Tupac Shakur biographer. And all you got to do is go to whenwefreetheworld.com, then show up at UCLA, and you can see this documentary. He'll be there. And your co-author will be there as well. Your co-writer, I guess, screenwriter for this will be there as well. So congratulations to you on that. What else do you want to let folks know about this film, Kevin?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, it should be email RSVP at whenwefreetheworld.com, RSVP at whenwefreetheworld.com,
okay.
So RSVP.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just, encouraging folks, please come out. If folks want to bring it to other parts of LA County, please, or anywhere in the country, really, because I know you're all over the country. We are open. You can follow me on any social media platform, Poet Kevin Powell. And we're just happy. This is a labor of love. We worked 6 years on this film, Dominique, through COVID, through all kinds of stuff, through George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I mean, you'll see references to all of that in the film, actually, because we wanted to create a time capsule, but also hopefully something that would be forward thinking for folks that, down the line. But I'm really excited and humbled and honored. I want to shout out Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter at UCLA, one of our great scholars. He's a true public intellectual. I'm just an activist servant trying to help people, but that brother's brilliant. If you don't know Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter, please check him out, because we wouldn't be there if that's the kind of underground railroad work we're doing with the film, where folks are just making it happen and getting us to these spaces, because God knows filmmaking is expensive and we need that kind of support. So we appreciate him so much.
Yeah, well, appreciate you and the work you're doing, even though, I know you're being humble, but we need poets in these times. I think about my late father. What do you think is the role of the poet at this moment in history?
Tell the truth. I'm working on my next poetry book. My next poetry album with music is going to be just like last time. Same title for the book and the album. I'm itching. I've been writing like crazy because, man, we got a lot to write about right now. And, I shout out your father, Mary Baraka. Ryan Coogler said that Baraka's work, Blues People, Mr. Baraka's work, helped to influence The Shape of Sinners, the movie. And so, we got to get victories where we can. We got to identify these spaces where we can get messages in there. And I'm literally seeing your father's name and other folks' names circulate on social media because of the Sinners movie. That's what it's about. When people see our movie tonight, if y'all can make it out, you'll see references to a lot of books in our movie. That's intentional, because we got to teach any way we can and help each other any way we can. And we got to understand the importance of community. And we can have differences, but I mean, love. And when I think about reparations, if I can say this last thing, Dominique DiPrima, it's really about repairing this whole world, because the whole world is damaged. This whole country is damaged. I mean, this is not some new phenomenon because of Trump. It's just on speed. It's on steroids. But I think more and more, how do we get to a space of love and healing? I didn't understand that when I was younger intellectually or age-wise, but I'm like, that's what it's about for me. I don't care about my accolades. I don't care about my anything. I'm like, how can we get to a space where people actually are treating each other well? I was listening to the commercials during the break. I'm like, man, why do we have homeless people all over this country? Why do we have people suffering all over this country? You know what I'm saying? So I think about reparations in all those terms, definitely for Black people, definitely for any people who have been marginalized, who've been oppressed, who've been victimized by systemic oppression, but really also, what is the world that we want to see and we want to create? That's why we call the film When We Free the World.
Well, Kevin Powell, as usual, it's a pleasure and an inspiration to talk with you, and congratulations. Okay, so you got to RSVP via email, RSVP at whenwefreetheworld.com. And again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, shout out to Oxford, Georgia, for having me as well. Appreciate y'all.
Artivist Maya Jupiter is next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The Alabama NAACP opposes President Trump's selection as commencement speaker at the University of Alabama, citing his record on race and civil rights. The speech is scheduled for May 1st and stayed until this evening following his funeral on Saturday. High mortgage rates and economic concerns are slowing the housing market.